Missing persons cases are a lot easier to solve in modern years, whether that be because of DNA evidence, security cameras, helicopters to search for missing people. All of these advancements have led to at least a logical explanation for many missing persons cases, except for this one. Seriously, watch until the end because this story takes a pretty crazy turn, and I have a very particular theory about what happened. This is the story of Steven Kubacki, the man who stepped off the earth. Steven Kubacki was a 23-year-old student of a small school in Michigan called Hope College. The event we're going to talk about regarding this guy happened in February of 1978, during his last year at Hope College. So he had like, I don't know, 4 months left of school. I think your senior year of college ends early or something, right? Depends on the college, I guess, but he was like 4 months from graduating, something like that. And he was a pretty good student, so he was probably not under a lot of pressure academically. He also had been an exchange student for a time and had gone to Germany, and there he began dating a German girl who he was still dating long distance at the time of the incident in 1978. He had a job offer and was already pretty much set in just about every way you could hope for as a 23-year-old. He was in close contact with his family and had no prior history of mental issues. And yes, all of that is pretty important, so keep that in mind moving forward. Like I said, he was pretty set in life, wasn't under a lot of stress, but let's get into the disappearance. Hope College is located very close to Lake Michigan, and so on Saturday, February 18th, Steven decided to cross-country ski over to Lake Michigan just on a little ski trip. Google Maps says it's an 8-mile walk to get there, and that's just like on main road. If you knew like little paths or something like that, it would be even shorter than that. Either way, Steven had been a competent skier for years, so nobody was really worried when he said he'd ski down to Lake Michigan and come back alone. So like I said, he set out on Saturday, February 18th, just to go down to Lake Michigan and then come back when he was done. It appears that this was a pretty regular thing for him to do as well. So he told his roommate at Hope College where he was going and that he'd be back soon. I don't think he really said, but within the day, maybe within 24 hours, he'd be back. When he wasn't back Saturday evening though, Steven's roommate was a little worried, but not too worried, as Steven may have just been staying somewhere else or just still been out somewhere or something like that. And it seems being out late skiing was a pretty normal thing for Steven to do, so there wasn't really too much to fuss about. However, Steven was still not back on Sunday morning. By the afternoon, Steven's roommate was actually starting to get worried, but in 1978, you could call the police and report a missing person, but they wouldn't look for them until they had been gone for more than 24 hours if they were a legal adult, so over 18. I guess because they're a legal adult, they're just allowed to go missing for a little bit and people really do not care. I guess that was the argument. I don't know. The rule has since stopped and you can report someone missing like right away, which is definitely for the better. But as such, the search didn't begin until Monday morning when Steven had already been gone for 2 days. On Monday, February 20th, 1978, a backpack and skis were found on the shore of Lake Michigan by 2 people on snowmobiles. This obviously began a search because the items were Steven's. Because it was on the shore, police believed that Steven had taken off his skis and backpack, walked out onto the ice on top of Lake Michigan for fun, and simply stepped on a weak patch of ice and fallen in and drowned. This is a pretty logical explanation, especially because there were tracks in the snow which led towards the lake and didn't come back. The ice on Lake Michigan is not quite as flat as on other lakes because it's a really big lake. It's very dangerous, and even if you were experienced, you could totally break the ice and fall in and get stuck under the ice or freeze or just drown. But there was no evidence of Steven falling in. This could have been from the ice shifting after Steven fell, and with the fact that there were no tracks leading back away from the lake, it seemed pretty clear to everybody what had happened to him. But the police could not find a body, so they kind of had to search the area. They used a helicopter, search team, snowmobiles, all that kind of stuff, and searched a pretty small area of about 3 square miles around Steven's backpack, but were unable to find a clue of his whereabouts. Steven's parents even flew in from Massachusetts and helped the search team look for their son. By the end of the week, it was pretty clear to most people that Steven was probably hundreds of feet under the ice, and although his parents hadn't given up hope, the search was called off. Hope College even gave Steven his degree in absentia, even though he technically hadn't finished it, just out of respect. To recap, a single set of tracks out onto the ice, no tracks back, no clues in the area. They kind of had to close the case after that, because that seemed like pretty much it. Steven's parents still couldn't believe their son was dead, but had given up looking, until a new piece of evidence appeared just over a year later. And that piece of evidence was Steven Kubacki alive and well. Steven Kubacki woke up in a grassy knoll in the town of Pittsfield, Massachusetts on Saturday, May 5th, 1979. Coincidentally, the same day of the week he had gone missing originally, except that it had been approximately 14 months since he had last been seen. He made it to his aunt's house in Great Barrington, about 20 miles away, and called his parents from there. According to Steven, he had been out on the lake the year prior, felt cold and scared of the darkness around him, and then woken up in 1979. He said he couldn't remember anything that had happened while he was missing. He had a new backpack on when he was found, which had some pretty interesting stuff in it. He had a new pair of running shoes, maps of California, and even a shirt from a marathon in Wisconsin. Steven also said that he'd felt like he'd done a lot of running. He also had a sign used to hitchhike, which meant he probably had been getting rides from people. All this stuff together puts the map of where Steven theoretically would have traveled to, starting here, moving to here for a marathon, here for the maps, and then back to here. And he did all of this with no money and then forgot that any of it had happened. When Steven showed up, he did not know where he was. The only reason he realized any time had passed since he had gone was that he looked at a newspaper and he saw the date on the newspaper. Up until that point, he didn't realize that he had been missing for over a year. And the weirdest part about this amnesia was that Steven didn't seem inclined to try to find out what had happened while he was missing, which is suspicious and brings us into the theory section of this video. There are three main theories for this actually insane story. I'll start with the most normal one and move up from there. The first theory is that Steven disappeared deliberately. He could have snuck away for 14 or so months and then reappeared when he wanted to. But there's really no reason he would have wanted to do this. Like I said, he had a loving family, a girlfriend, a job offer, school was almost done. You could say maybe he wanted to disappear because he was afraid of having adult responsibility, but nobody who knew him thought he would do something like that. And he'd show no signs of wanting to give up on his current life. Also, when he reappeared, he went back and finished his degree, which if he ran away because he was afraid of finishing college, why'd he immediately finish college when he got back? And he was never spotted by anyone he knew, never had any records of going anywhere. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, theory number two is the fugue state theory. I'm not gonna lie, this might sound cringe, but the only reason I know what a fugue state is because of Breaking Bad. But basically, a fugue state is a temporary condition where someone will enter the state for a period of time and then forget it happened upon leaving the fugue. During a fugue, you might take on an entirely new personality and forget everyone you know. It's super weird, and while they usually only last a short period of hours or days, they sometimes can last longer, but 14 months? Maybe. This theory is more believable than the first in a way, but I still have some problems with it. Firstly, as I said, there were tracks onto the Lake Michigan ice and no tracks back. So Steven would have to take off his backpack, walk onto the ice, enter a fugue state, then walk off the ice while probably forgetting all of his experience on ice, make no footsteps on the way back, leave no clues in the surrounding area, find somewhere to stay and not freeze, and leave to hitchhike across the country and back for 14 months without being spotted. Yeah, it seems pretty unlikely in my opinion. Now, the third theory makes perfect sense. It just has one problem, which is that you need to believe in interdimensional portals. So hear me out, okay? So there are a lot of religions which believe in different worlds or even sort of like pocket dimensions. There are even Native American beliefs of different worlds that are usually accessed through some kind of spiritual journey. But let's pretend for a second that there is a kind of like Zen border world from Half-Life that's significantly smaller than Earth. If a portal somehow opened into this dimension, you'd end up, this is going to sound cringe, but like the Nether from Minecraft, you'd end up in roughly the same spot as you would on Earth, but the dimension is much smaller. So if something or someone from the other side of America came through the portal, they'd end up much closer to you because the dimension is smaller. So it's like a 1-to-1 in terms of where on that dimension you are, but the dimension is way smaller, if that makes sense. This sounds crazy because it is, but think about it for a second, okay? Steven walks out onto the ice and apparently doesn't walk back. Like I said, there were no tracks found coming back, which just shouldn't be possible. Then Steven isn't seen for 14 months by apparently anyone. His picture had been in the news around the country. It was a pretty big news story at the time. And when he comes back, Steven has a backpack with items from around the country. So what if he had entered a portal out on the lake and not traveled across the country, but found items or people in this pocket dimension? Then there's the fact that he never wanted to look into what he was doing while he was missing. Now, why wouldn't he want answers? Could it have been the bad memories of something in that dimension? And there's also the quote he stated about how he'd done a lot of running. It sounds innocent when you take it at face value, especially with the marathon shirt, but what if he wasn't just running to run, and instead he was running from something? Anyway, let me know down in the comments your theories and subscribe for more videos just like this. But I have another really interesting strange disappearance. I'll make a video on that soon. Yeah, let me know your thoughts on these theories, but I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.